Hi, I'm Marianne Williamson, and this is my book, A Return to Love. I grew up in a middle-class Jewish family laced with the magical overtones of an eccentric father. In 1965, when I was 13, he took me to Vietnam to show me what war was. He wanted to make sure the military-industrial complex didn't eat my brain and convince me war was okay. My grandfather was very religious, and sometimes I would go to synagogue with him on Saturday mornings. When the Ark was opened during the service, he would bow and begin to cry. I would cry too, but I don't know whether I was crying out of a budding religious fervor or simply because he was. When I went to high school, I took my first philosophy class and decided God was a crutch I didn't need. What kind of God would let children starve, I argued, or infants get cancer, or the Holocaust happen? I figured I was too well read now to believe in God. Like a lot of people at that time, late 60s, early 70s, I was pretty wild. Every door marked no by conventional standards seemed to hold a key to some lascivious pleasure I just had to have. I didn't know what to do with my life, though I remember my parents kept begging me to do something. I went from relationship to relationship, job to job, city to city, looking for some sense of identity or purpose, some feeling that my life had finally kicked in. I knew I had talent, but I didn't know at what. I knew I had intelligence, but I was too frantic to apply it to my own circumstances. I went into therapy several times, but it rarely made an impact. I sank deeper and deeper into my own neurotic patterns, seeking relief in food, drugs, people, or whatever else I could find to distract me from myself. I was always trying to make something happen in my life, but nothing much happened except all the drama I created around things not happening. There was some huge rock of self-loathing sitting in the middle of my stomach during those years, and it got worse with every phase I went through. By my mid-20s, I was a total mess. I kept thinking there was something very important that no one was discussing. I believed other people were dying inside too, just like me, but there was some conspiracy not to talk about it. I didn't have the words myself, but I was sure that something was fundamentally off in this world. One day, in 1977, I saw a set of blue books with gold lettering sitting on someone's coffee table in New York City. I opened to the introduction. It read, "This is a course in miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance." Unquote. I remember thinking that sounded rather intriguing, if not arrogant. Reading further, however, I noticed Christian terminology throughout the books. This made me nervous. Although I had studied Christian theology in school, I had kept it at an intellectual distance. I put the books back on the table. It took another year before I picked them up again. Another year and another year's misery. Then I was ready. This time I was so depressed I didn't even notice the language. It used traditional Christian terms, but in decidedly non-traditional, non-religious ways. I was struck, as most people are, by the profound authority of its voice. It answered questions I had begun to think were unanswerable. It talked about God in brilliant psychological terms, challenging my intelligence and never insulting it. The course seemed to have a basic message: relax. I was confused to hear that, because I had always associated relaxing with resigning. I had been waiting for someone to explain to me how to fight the fight, or to fight the fight for me, and now this book suggested that I surrender the fight completely. I was surprised but very relieved. I had long suspected I was not made for worldly combat. For me, this was not just another book. This was my personal teacher, my path out of hell. As I began reading the course and following its workbook exercises, I could feel almost immediately that the changes it produced inside of me were positive. I felt happy. I felt like I was beginning to calm down. I began to understand myself, to get some hook on why my relationships had been so painful, why I could never stay with anything, why I hated my body. And most importantly, I began to have some sense that I could change. The Course in Miracles, a self-study program of spiritual psychotherapy contained in 3 books, claims no monopoly on God and is a statement of universal spiritual themes. There's only one truth spoken different ways, and the Course is just one path to it out of many. If it's your path, however, you know it. For me, the Course was a breakthrough experience, intellectually, emotionally, and psychologically. It freed me from a terrible emotional pain. Over the next 5 years, I studied the Course passionately. As my mother said at the time, I read it like a menu. In 1983, I began sharing my understanding of the Course with a small gathering of people in Los Angeles. The group began to grow. Since then, my lecture audiences have grown significantly here and abroad. I have had the opportunity to see how relevant this material is to people throughout the world. My prayer is that these tapes might help someone. I'm speaking with an open heart. I hope you'll listen with an open mind. When we were born, we were programmed perfectly. We had a natural tendency to focus on love. Our imaginations were creative and flourishing, and we knew how to use them. We were connected to a world much richer than the one we connect to now, a world full of enchantment and a sense of the miraculous. So what happened? Why is it that we reached a certain age, looked around, and the enchantment was gone? Because we were taught to focus elsewhere. We were taught to think unnaturally. We were taught a very bad philosophy, a way of looking at the world that contradicts who we are. We were taught to think thoughts like competition, struggle, sickness, finite resources, limitation, guilt, bad, death, scarcity, and loss. We began to think them, and so we began to know them. We were taught that things like grades and being good enough and money and doing things the right way are more important than love. We were taught that we're separate from other people, that we have to compete to get ahead, that we're not quite good enough the way we are. Fear is what we learned here. Love is what we were born with. The spiritual journey is the relinquishment or unlearning of fear and the acceptance of love back into our hearts. Love is the essential existential fact. It is our ultimate reality and our purpose on earth. To be consciously aware of it, to experience love in ourselves and others, is the meaning of life. Love is who we are, and love is what we're here for. Nothing else is real, and nothing else matters. Love isn't material, it's energy. It's the feeling in a room, a situation, a person. Money can't buy it, sex doesn't guarantee it. It has nothing at all to do with the physical world, but it can be expressed here nevertheless. This is the meaning of a world of light. We experience it as kindness, giving, mercy, compassion, peace, joy, acceptance, non-judgment, joining, and intimacy. What is fear? Our world of darkness. It's our shared lovelessness, our individual and collective hells. When fear is expressed, we recognize it as anger, abuse, disease, pain, greed, addiction, selfishness, obsession, corruption, violence, and war. But love cannot be destroyed. It can only be covered over. The world we knew as children is still buried within our minds. The truth doesn't stop being the truth just because we're not looking at it. Love just became clouded over or surrounded by mental mists. And that's what a miracle is. A parting of those mists. A decision to see love where we had seen fear before. It's a shift in perception. A return to love. What happened to my generation is that we never grew up. The problem isn't that we're lost or apathetic, too narcissistic or materialistic. The problem is we're terrified. A lot of us know we have what it takes, the looks, the education, the talent, the credentials. But in certain areas, we're paralyzed. We're in a free-floating terror. We're afraid this isn't the right relationship, or we're afraid it is. We're afraid they won't like us, or we're afraid they will. We're afraid of failure, or we're afraid of success. We're afraid of dying young, or we're afraid of growing old. We're more afraid of life than we are of death. You'd think we'd have some compassion for ourselves, bound up in emotional chains the way we are. But we don't. We're just disgusted with ourselves because we think we should be better by now. It's become popular these days to blame practically everything on our parents. They're a new scapegoat. We figure it's because of them that our self-esteem is so low. If only they'd been different, we'd be brimming with self-love. But if you take a close look at how they treated us, whatever abuse they gave us was often mild compared to the way we abuse ourselves today. They might have been mean, but we're vicious. Our generation has slipped into a barely camouflaged vortex of self-loathing. And we're always, even desperately, seeking a way out.